Says I'm live. What's good, everybody? Take AZ back here. Another NBA video for you guys. I had tried to figure out how to come up with this one for the last couple days, as I was going to preview what I thought was going to happen with restricted free agency based on rumors and where we're at in the offseason. And then over the past 24 hours or so, 2 deals came in. So that gave me a good jumping off point here for a video. Are you coming in? So let's start first talking about the 2 moves. So Benedict Mathurin was long rumored to join the Pelicans. He finally did on a 2-year, $16 million deal, about $8 million a year. What is interesting about this is it's a 2-year deal, and I think it has a player option in year 2 or something. Something about it, other than the fact that it's not 3 years, means it can't be a sign and trade. It means it requires the Clippers to renounce Mathurin. So this was expected to be a sign and trade. It's still going to essentially be a sign and trade, I think, because the Pelicans are going to have to give the Clippers some sort of sweetener to I just had a complete blank on words. They're going to have to give them some sort of sweetener to untender him, essentially, to make him an unrestricted free agent. And this will also push the Pelicans, I think, a smidge over the first apron, which would make this an illegal move. So meaning they have to make a move prior to it. And that is going to be essentially the sweetener trade with the Clippers. So most likely they will dump Jordan Hawkins to the Clippers or a third team and probably give the Clippers a second round pick or something to get Mathurin. We'll see what exactly they have to give up. Those rumors haven't come out yet. But just for it financially to happen, something along those lines would have to happen. The other move that happened today, a few hours ago, is Jonathan Kuminga signed a 2-year, $13 million deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. That was the max deal the Timberwolves could give him. The non-taxpayer mid-level exception. 6.06, I think, is the maximum year 1 salary with a player option in year 2. And similar to the Pelicans, Timberwolves are way over the tax in the first apron, but they had about $4 million in room under the second apron. They're going to pay Kuminga 6.06, which means they're about 2.1 over the second apron, which would make that signing illegal. So they will also first have to make a trade to do that. So that is where we will jump into the topic that I've been trying to figure out a video for. And that is that when you acquire a player, you can't re-aggregate them in another trade for 60 days, meaning you can't trade for like 3 $5 million players and then immediately bundle those 3 players together and get a $15 million player. In a second trade, you have to wait 60 days. So if we look around the league at roster counts, this is the spreadsheet that's up on the screen here that I put together. We have 5 teams that are under the legal roster count. You have to field at least 14 players, a maximum of 15. You can carry up to 22 in the offseason, but that counts your two-way players. So that's why you see no one over 19, because the teams with 19 rostered players typically also have 3 two-way guys, so that puts them at the 22. The number might be 21, because I think the Grizzlies only have 2 two-way guys, so maybe the number's 21. Regardless, that number has to get down to 15 before the start of the regular season. The roster cutoff is pretty close to opening day. It's about a week or so before that. So there is a good month or so where these exceptions will expire before the cuts have to actually be made. So if we look at the Nuggets are the highest payroll in the league. They are the only team currently over the second apron. Hypothetically, the Wolves are currently over the second apron right now. So maybe the Wolves actually right now have the highest payroll, but it's not legal, so they're not going to end up that way. So once the Wolves get cap compliant, they'll have a cheaper payroll than the Nuggets. The Nuggets haven't tendered a 14th player for a minimum deal, I think because they would still like to get under the second apron. I have a few of those trades conjured up here. I think both involving the Clippers. Miami's at $13 million. They had to take on the Bobby Portis contract in the Giannis trade. I think they would like to flip that. They don't have many contracts they could really bundle it with. They also are very draft pick light. I think they would love to like trade Nikola Jovic and Bobby Portis and get more serviceable players back, but both those are negative contracts at this point. Bobby Portis may be a neutral contract, but it does have the second year on it. The Wolves, as we covered, they're at 14 players right now, technically, but they're not cap compliant. There's talks they might stretch and waive Josh Green, which would save them about 10 million, put them back at 13 players. So the benefit to that is you would go from 14 million for Josh Green down to about 5 million a year over the next 3 years. So you'd save 10 million. That get you 8 million under the second apron. You'd have to replace them with the minimum. So you get roughly 6 million under the second apron. So you would be about $2 million cheaper in payroll than you were at the start of the day overall. And have that extra 14th player with Kuminga and whoever that 14th player ends up being. But the cost of that is that those $5 million cap hits in the next 2 years when you're also going to be up against the aprons here. So it potentially is going to cost you more money in the long run for a short-term game. I think they're going to try to trade Josh Green instead. Because the Mathurin and Kuminga trades signings aren't technically legal right now. They're obviously not signed. So the stretch and waive deadline is this Saturday, August 29th. But I think they could potentially keep Josh Green past that because they could agree to a trade. And I have a few Josh Green trades here we'll get to in a second. They could agree to a trade similar to that they agreed to a contract with Kuminga. They would just have to legally wait to do it until those times. So Josh Green has a aggregation expiration on September 10th, but they could trade him today as long as he's the only player involved in the Wolves going out. But I think, just to jump ahead a little bit, I think the most likely trade is if we jump down to the Grizzlies. So those 5 teams in red are the teams that are under the roster limit. The 6 or so teams in blue are the teams currently over 15 players in both guaranteed contracts and just roster count, with the Grizzlies having the most players. So Chris Murray and D'Angelo Russell, I think both don't really serve a point on that team. They could bundle those two together for Josh Green. It reduces your roster count 1. Josh Green is a serviceable NBA player, as like a 3-and-D guy. The Grizzlies have plenty of 4s. Chris Murray could maybe play the 3, but Josh Green would be an upgrade there. They're most likely going to waive D'Lo, so if they could get out of the D'Lo contract like that, it's not going to save them money because Josh Green would cost them $4 million more than just waiving both those guys. But you would essentially get a better player for nothing, and have less dead money. Not that the dead money really matters to Memphis. The Knicks are at 13 players. They're hard to figure out. They're right up against the second apron. They have enough space to sign the minimum guy. I'm not sure what the holdup is getting to the 14th guy, but they would have to trade one of the rotation guys. Their top 6 or so make up their whole payroll. And I don't see them trading like Josh Hart to get like two players for Josh Hart or anything like that. So they'll sign a minimum. I'm not sure what the holdup is, but they're taking their time signing their 14th player. Maybe it's going to be one of the young guys on like an Exhibit 10 deal, so they could pay him like $1 million instead of $2.5 million and save a little bit of luxury tax money. And then the Kings did officially stretch and waive DeMar DeRozan, which got them under the tax and gave them enough room to sign up to 2 more players on minimums and still stay under the tax by stretching and waiving DeRozan. I expect that's what they'll do. I don't think they'll do a trade. I think they would still explore a Zach LaVine trade, but that would be pretty tough to pull off at this point in time because he's like a $48 million player. I thought there was a potential they could trade. I didn't conjure this one up, but I've played around with it before. They could trade like LaVine to the Grizzlies, and get Jeremy Grant back, and then get like Jordan Poole back from the Pelicans, and then I think the Pelicans would have to take like Malik Monk back, and then maybe some other of the Grizzly filler to make the money work. The Grizzlies reduce their roster count. The Kings add a couple players. And then the Pelicans slightly reduce their count, get off Jordan Poole, turn him into a player they would like to play more, but with more years on their contract, was an idea. The Clippers, I have this with the Kawhi trade, so 18-16. Without the Kawhi trade, they're at 17-15. The Mathurin trade is done, but they're probably going to take a player from the Pelicans here. So they're another team likely to do like a 3-for-1. They have some tradable pieces. We'll get to those guys in a second. The Hawks are 2 players over, 1 player over guaranteed contract. They took Devin Carter from the Kings for a second-round pick earlier in the offseason. If they could flip him for something, I think they potentially would. What that something is, it's hard to say though. But they could do something like Devin Carter and Corey Kispert for a bad $18 million contract, maybe. The Hornets have a lot of guys. They've been kind of the dumping ground this year, so they have a lot of interesting vets. But they all make like in that $13 million range, so it's hard to really bundle them together. The Bucks have a very weird roster that's like all guards. So even though they have 17 players, they don't have enough bigs on their roster. The problem is there's just not really bigs to acquire or power forwards. That's how the Wolves ended up with Josh Green, is that was like the biggest guy they could get in the LaMelo trade. It's hard to find bigs right now. The Hornets have a decent amount of them with Royce O'Neal, Grant Williams, and Dorian Finney-Smith. But they're all a bit long in the tooth, and I'm not sure how much you really want to pay for any of those. And the Lakers are 1 player over. They lost out on Kuminga. That was their hope. We'll see what they do. They could just waive a guy. They're just over the tax, so they would love to do a 2-for-1 where they save like $1 million and get under the tax. We'll see if they do that. And then the teams in the yellow here, they're teams that can just waive their non-guaranteed players to get roster compliant, but technically at the moment they have more than 15 players. The most interesting team, I think, we've talked about the Pelicans a bit as a team that's got to get under the first apron. They've also never paid the tax, so they got to get under the tax. That's just how that franchise operates. And then the Pistons are still waiting to sign Jalen Duren. I was trying to figure out a Jalen Duren trade to the Bucks where Tyler Hero goes back to the Pistons, but it's just tricky. It's tricky to pull out, and I don't know that the Bucks really want to give up assets at this point after trading Giannis. They also did a deal earlier in the season where Levert went to the Bucks, and Gary Harris and Taurean Prince went back to the Pistons, which is part of the reason the Pistons are at a bit of a roster crunch right now. So if you see, they are at 15 players right now, but Jalen Duren, for all intents and purposes, is going to end up back on this roster. But he has not signed yet. He's the one restricted free agent left. I think ultimately they have to come to some sort of compromise. The Pistons are trying to lowball him a little too much. And he wants a max. There's just no way that max money is going to come up. And taking the qualifying offer is just extremely risky when there's $100 million something contract on the table. So I think the Pistons probably end up giving him about $30 million a year, giving him essentially the Walker Kessler contract. I think is probably what makes sense for both sides there. All right, so let's wrap this up after going over that with a few of the trades I came up with here to fix some of these scenarios we just talked about. So that was not the right button. Are you going? I'm live right now, buddy. So let's scroll over here. Instead of playing with this live, I preset them here before the video, trying to do a little bit better, having stuff ready ahead of time here. So this is a trade. I have two versions of this trade here, where the Clippers get Cam Johnson from the Nuggets, and the Nuggets increase their depth after losing Peyton Watson, and get under the second apron, which I believe they probably are going to want to do. I don't think they're going to finish the year over the second apron. Cam Johnson is the easiest player to trade in this scenario, just because he's a valuable NBA player and he makes a lot of money. So you can trade a $23 million contract to save $2 million or so. In this scenario, they save 6.9. In this one, I combined it with the Pelicans. So this will get the Pelicans compliant for Ben Mathurin. With also, let's see if I can get these all on the screen here. So Derek Jones is going to the Pelicans. My face is in the way. Let me move myself to the other side here. So Derek Jones goes to the Pelicans, saving them 3.1. They got to save about $2 million or so to get. I think they have to save $2 million. Let's see. I think I can actually look on here. Yeah, they need to save about 2.3 roughly to be under the tax. A little less than that to be under the first apron. So saving 3.1, getting Derek Jones will accomplish that. To do that, they sent out Saddiq Bey and Jordan Hawkins. So Saddiq Bey, probably the better player of the two guys. But combining that salary with Jordan Hawkins, it gets you the savings you need. And Derek Jones should be able to replace Bey by and large. The Clippers do the Cam Johnson trade again. They also take on Zeke Naji here in this scenario because I wanted to include the 2031 first. So the Clippers are getting a swap of probably the lesser of the two picks, maybe the better of the two picks, I'm not sure, between Cleveland and Denver, and the Clippers swap. That maybe isn't enough, but I tried to just find some middle ground there. And the Nuggets, they get Saddiq Bey. They have to take on the Jordan Hawkins contract. They also get Brook Lopez and Chris Dunn, and they get the second round pick that the Pelicans had to give up to get cap compliant. So maybe it's not a swap. Maybe it's a protected first. Going to the Clippers here. So what the Nuggets get is they get off the Zeke Naji contract. They have to take back. Oh no, I didn't have them take Isaiah Jackson. So they get out of the Zeke Naji contract, which is why they gave up the pick. They get probably the best backup Jokic has had in Brook Lopez, even though Brook Lopez is 38 years old now. Saddiq Bey can slot in to replace Cam Johnson in the starting lineup, give you a little bit more of a defensive presence. And then Chris Dunn can be a guard wing stopper off the bench for you. Jordan Hawkins is not going to do anything for you. And you save 2.1, which gets you right under the second apron. And then I think the rest of these trades are all Josh Green scenarios to make the Wolves cap compliant here. So the Wolves have no tradable assets in terms of draft picks or even like the draft rights to players. Oh my gosh, Lincoln. Figure it out, man. So this is the one I think is going to happen. Chris Murray can play power forward, give them a little bit more size off the bench. D'Angelo Russell essentially a sunk cost at this point. His best years in the last 4 years or so have been under Chris Finch on the Wolves. So maybe he can be a reclamation project on the Wolves, but this is more so just to make the money work. Save Memphis from having to waive one player, and they get the best player in the deal. Again, the Clippers, I did Derek Jones and Johnny Brome. This gives the Wolves much needed size that they need. It saves them the $2.1 million they need to save, which I think is just enough to keep them cap compliant. This would put them at 15 players, so they could remove Johnny Brome from this trade if needed, and then it would just be a 1-for-1. I'm not sure Josh Green is better than Derek Jones. I'm not sure how much this one makes sense. And then I explored doing a trade with the Lakers. retake on the Jared Vanderbilt contract. He has a second year on that contract, which makes it tough, which I think is why the Lakers would do it, even though it pushes them further into the tax. They give up 2 seconds, so the Wolves recoup some draft assets since they have none, and they saved enough money to get that Kuminga signing done. Jared Vanderbilt becomes their emergency power forward and emergency center. Probably doesn't play much, but it's a lot of money to pay, especially in 2027, for a player that's not really going to play. Okay, and that was everything I came up with. Yeah, I couldn't. I was tried to play with making a Miami Heat trade. I tried to play with making a Knicks trade. I couldn't really come up with anything for those guys. So I think that covers all the topics I wanted to cover. So let's get out of here around